Secretary Crowfoot, thank you so much for joining us in our 6th annual Data Summit. I know you're very busy and it means so much for us to have you here. And you're kind of a record holder for Data Summit because now you've been with us 3 times as keynote speaker, and we thank you for all your support through the years. And if you remember back in 2016, when we had our first Data Summit at Stanford, you were our first keynote speaker. And since then, this collaborative, this idea, this movement has grown so much. And today we represent 21 million Californians. And I was just wondering, as you reflect back, what do you think about our growth and some of the things that we've been able to achieve?
Well, it's remarkable. I remember that convening well at Stanford back in 2016. And it seems like a lot more than just 5 or 6 years ago, I'll tell you that. But at the time, I remember that there being a pent-up demand for more discussion and collaboration and frankly, utilization of water data. We all know in our bones on a daily basis how complicated California water is within our own water agencies, our own governmental organizations, but then across our system of systems. So the consortium, this coalition of the willing was born out of this recognition that we need to better measure everything in California water if we're going to improve water management. And I'm really pleased with the amount of progress that's occurred over the last 5 years. Certainly with this confederated system of data, big thanks to Department of Water Resources and the state's Water Resources Control Board for anchoring the state's participation. As I understand it, there are more discussions, more working relationships, and most importantly, more utilization of all manner of data to actually improve water management at the local level, the regional level, and even the state level. So much more work ahead of us, and we can talk about that, but I think the health of this effort and the breadth of organizations that are involved in this effort really speak to the fact that we're collectively onto something.
Well, and your support has been so critical over the years, and in all the different capacities that you serve the state of California, you've always taken our calls, you've always made sure that you put the message out there to support this effort. And I love how you always say system of systems, and data is part of that fabric. And it's been such a helpful way for us to advance some of the management strategies, particularly now that we're heading into, what people have called it the mega drought. And when we started the Data Collaborative, back in 2016, that really was motivated by, again, a historic drought at that time. And since then, under Governor Newsom's leadership, under your leadership, the resilience portfolio, and highlighting all that it takes to be resilient for California going forward and being very creative and collaborative. And that's why the theme of this conference is expecting the unexpected. And it's how we prepare ourselves for what we can't foresee, but how we do it better going forward. But everyone has just a little bit of a different way of describing the word resiliency. We hear it a lot, we know what it means. And I was just wondering, from all the years of experience and all the different capacity, for you, what does resiliency mean for California?
It's a great question. And I mean, I'd boil it down to the title of your convening, which is preparing for the unexpected. But maybe more broadly, we talk about water resilience as enabling communities and natural places to adapt and weather growing challenges, whether that's climate-driven drought and flooding or any other manner of impacts on water systems. So to me, it's all about enabling California, both our human communities, our natural communities, to continue to be able to thrive, given, frankly, stressors on our water system. We know that climate change impacts are accelerating. We're literally experiencing that this summer between catastrophic wildfires, record-breaking extreme heat, and now deepening drought and alarming drought conditions compared to just 5 years ago. So from our perspective, really strengthening our ability to weather these changes and adapt to these changes is more important than ever. That led us, really the experience in the last drought led Governor Newsom to issue that executive order back in the beginning of 2018, instructing or directing our state agencies to develop this water resilience portfolio. And that was really the watchword, is resilience. How do we build California's drought resilience and flood resilience? How do we take a system that was the marvel of engineers across the world 75 years ago, 100 years ago, that is centralized, rigid, and fairly static, and make that water system of systems more decentralized, more flexible, and more dynamic? And so the water resilience portfolio, as you know, June, called for very specific actions that we've been tracking and making progress on. And our focus has been not a one-size-fits-all solution from Sacramento, because California's water needs are so diverse based on where you're at in the state and who's providing your water. But rather, what can the state do to help agencies like yours improve local and regional resilience? And that's really been our focus. Frankly, I was hoping that we would have some space and time to actually build drought resilience before experiencing the next drought. But the fact is, we have to continue to build the plane or transform our systems even as we address and respond to the immediate impacts of drought.
Absolutely. And 2020 being such an unprecedented year, between the pandemic, the social unrest, the wildfires, all these events compounding, and we're not out of the woods yet. And we're facing this, again, another big drought and continued situations that we experienced in 2020. So when you look at just over the years, and particularly focusing on last year and this year, what do you think is the greatest challenge or barrier to achieving what you described in terms of decentralizing and utilizing all these different strategies to make California more resilient?
Well, I mean, my colleague Joaquin Esquivel has put it well, and I've heard this from other people as well. We have 19th century laws and 20th century infrastructure to address a 21st century challenge of accelerating climate change. And so we have built a system, over the last 170 years since statehood, that has served our growth into, a state of 40 million people, the 5th largest economy of the world, that has to be fundamentally transformed. And that transformation takes time. Consider SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. For probably the most notable change in California water management in the last 2 decades. California, the last state in the American West to manage groundwater. It takes time. That bill passed in 2014, 7 years ago. And we are now, Department of Water Resources is doing a great job evaluating the first tranche of groundwater sustainability plans. And as you know, it will be another 20 years until sustainable groundwater use is achieved in basins. So I think the biggest challenge is, how do we move at the pace that climate change demands, recognizing that these systems, whether the physical systems or the managerial systems or the legal systems, took decades to evolve. How do we change them, improve them at the pace required by the Mother Nature?
Well, one thing I've realized, and there's so many questions, some of which you laid out. And I think when you're going through crisis, you feel like you're just kind of going through it alone. And one thing that we learned over the years is that we have a lot of friends across the state, across the country, across the world that have faced very similar challenges, because climate change is a global issue. And so, for example, our friends in the Kingdom of Denmark, who is our wonderful partner for this data summit, they've done some amazing work, and we've had a great partnership as a state, as my agency, in learning from each other and trying things together. And so I wonder if you can speak a little bit to the value of partnership, and particularly with Denmark, because you were part of the whole effort with the signing of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between California and Kingdom of Denmark. And since its inception, many agencies like ours have benefited from that kind of relationship, both locally and also regionally. So maybe if you can talk a little bit about sort of what you had envisioned and how you see that come to fruition.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say at the highest level, the collaborative, that you helped to lead is that platform for partnership. And shame on us if water agencies, organizations across the state are each inventing their own approaches to these challenges we face, particularly on data. And as you know, I work with an extraordinary colleague, Nancy Vogel, who serves as our Deputy Secretary on all things water. And in preparing for my discussion with you, I asked her for her thoughts on the value of the collaborative. And I want to give you a quote that she actually emailed me, which is, "We need tools like this collaborative and the summit to showcase what's possible, help us speak the same language, highlight trends, spark discussion, build connections, and steer us collectively toward water data, infrastructure, governance, and practices that reduce the friction of managing water." So I think these platforms, these collaborative platforms, where there are this sort of coalition of the willing, partnering, sharing ideas, learning from each other, are absolutely essential. Likewise, in California, we want to learn from others that are leading the way on water. And that led us to this partnership with Denmark. We're now on our second updated memorandum of understanding with Denmark. And Denmark, as many don't know, has actually been a leader in water technology. And so one of the areas of focus of this official government to government agreement is to share our expertise with each other on water. And we're benefiting this in real time. As I understand it, very recently in San Luis Obispo, a pilot is underway utilizing technology from Denmark that's actually using helicopter-based electromagnetic readings to better understand groundwater levels in San Luis Obispo and to improve sustainable groundwater management. Likewise, we were really excited with the Department of Water Resources leadership in partnering with the Environmental Defense Fund and others to provide this open source groundwater accounting platform that could enable the flexible use and sharing of groundwater within groundwater agencies. These are the types of partnerships that we need to expand and accelerate if we're going to achieve the resilience that we need to achieve quickly. And California has been, such a beacon of innovation, as we all know. And I would challenge us in the water industry to say, historically, our water sector hasn't necessarily been as innovative as other places. I think that's changing as a result of a lot of the participants in today's summits. And these partnerships will allow us to move further and faster on that innovation.
And thank you for those comments. And also please thank Nancy for her kind words. And that's what we try so hard to be, is to bring people together, not only to create a network of ideas and innovation and technology, but idea of just bringing everybody together to develop these pathways for where you envision the future, where we need to be. And now more than ever, with all these challenges ahead and challenges continuing and growing, and right now we are dealing with this drought condition in California. Governor Newsom has issued a voluntary 15% reduction. And so what message for the audience and the participants of this conference do you have as we look at what people are describing as a pretty bleak future for water? What can you tell us? What can you share with us?
I would say everybody has a role to play in building our resilience to climate change, and specifically our resilience to drought. California is no stranger to drought. We've been through this before. We'll successfully navigate this. But the way that we'll do that is everyone in California, regardless of whether you're a water sector professional or just a regular person living and working in California, will do their part. We know that the last 2 years have been remarkably impactful for our water supply infrastructure. And we know that if we have another dry winter, we're going to be challenged like never before. So actions that are taking now to deepen water conservation will pay dividends, not only to help us collectively weather this drought, but of course to lower water bills for average Californians, to keep water in the rivers for the environment that we care about, and frankly, protect the water security that our communities rely on. So, Save Our Water, which has been the platform for water conservation in the state, is getting a refresh in real time that really coordinates with the governor's call for 15% conservation. we would ask our water agency partners and our water sector partners participating here today to do what you can to drive this message. And it's all towards efficiency and sustainability. And as you know, June, and most everyone on this in this convening knows, the improvements that we make now to better utilize water will not only get us through the current conditions, but enable our long-term environmental and economic sustainability. So, don't look to your neighbor and ask them to do something. We are the people we've been waiting for to actually show the world as a state on the front lines of climate change, how we're going to drive down our pollution, transition to a low carbon, no carbon economy in coming decades, and build our resilience to these impacts like drought that are already here. And I'm energized and optimistic. If not here in California, where else?
Absolutely. And all those different aspects you spoke of, for us at our agency, our message has been resilient together. Whether we have a drought or no drought, this is a new way of living and thinking. And we can only do this and be successful if we work together and know that all these different pieces have to fit together in a very integrated way. Now, before we end, I do have to ask you one question that has nothing to do with all this technical stuff. So part of this conference, what we're doing is highlighting the importance of storytelling, people's stories. And so if there was a book about Wade Crowfoot, what would the title of the book be? And me knowing some of your stories and everything that you have been through, there are a lot of people that are listening and watching you right now of all different generations, all different disciplines and backgrounds. And, it's tough when you're trying to do something that's transformative. It's not easy to bring about change. There's a lot of setbacks, there's a lot of pushback, and sometimes it can be a little discouraging. So what sort of a motivating message based on your personal and professional experience can you share with everyone? It's a loaded question, I know.
Loaded question, June, and you did not prepare me for this. And I'm a big book guy. I mean, at any given day, I have like a ton of different books on my desk, and I love reading, and I'm not good at writing, and I'm certainly not good at naming books. But I mean, I would say, adventures into the art of the possible. And from my perspective, it's so easy in this day and age for a lot of reasons to be glass half empty. And I think that a lot of people that are part of this collaborative that are really figuring out how to innovate water data are people that are naturally drawn to the glass half full approach. And so to me, what I love about the job that I'm in right now is I have this leverage, thanks to Governor Newsom and his leadership, to really push the art of the possible. And I'll be the first one to say that the answers do not exist where I work here in Sacramento. The answers exist across the state and across the world. So I think my closing message would be, help us understand how we at the state can actually support innovation across the state. It won't be a one size fits all. And we want to understand what the role is that we can play actually helping the collaborative succeed, so that at your 10-year anniversary, you're able to look back on not only the first 5 years, but the second 5 years, and really consider your role as pivotal in getting us through this drought, but actually setting us toward a long-term sustainability path, given all the challenges we face.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us and for all your support and guidance, advice, everything over the years. And I personally want to thank you, Wade, because I know you're always so busy and you've always made time for me and my texts, and always making sure that you're there to support in every way. So we thank you so much, Secretary Crowfoot, for joining us. And we look forward to the 10-year anniversary, and we'll continue to bug you between now and then as well. And we just appreciate everything that you've done for us and for your leadership for California. Just a tremendous amount of gratitude.
Well, and back at you, June. I mean, you've been a tremendous leader in a lot of respects, including driving this collaborative forward. Molten Nigel is walking the walk, and just huge thanks to everyone that's taking part in the collaborative, whether you work for an agency or a state government entity or academia or a nonprofit organization, or you're an independent thinker and doer. It's going to take us all to address the challenges we face.
Great. Well, thank you again.
Thank you. Take care.